Okay.
Hello there, this is Adam Hillhouse. Today I'm excited to be speaking with Mr. David Dowell, AIA, principal with the award-winning firm Dorado, Inc. With offices in Kansas City, Missouri, and Wichita, Kansas, Dorado has taken a non-traditional path to the practice of architecture. With roots dating back to 1995, the firm has transformed from an architecture practice that also did fabrication to a full-service design-build firm. Their work spans the definitions of architecture, commercial, residential, civic, etc., but they also include in their resumes public artists, curators, and now builders. David, it is my pleasure to speak with you this morning.
Thanks, Adam. It's good to be with you.
So first off, I'm fascinated with the story of Dorado, struggle, triumph, and as you state on your website, blue-collar glory. Your session at this fall's conference is entitled Dorado, Inc., City of Gold or Boondoggle. Can you give us a quick preview of the backstory of Dorado?
Sure. I think maybe one of the first things to say is that we started. Dorado was not an intentional business idea. It really was a reaction to. It was a reaction to things that we felt we weren't getting working in a larger, more commercial firm, but it also was a structure that allowed us to do things that we wanted to do in a community that was starting to congeal in a way here in the Crossroads Arts District in Kansas City. So. It was optimistic. It was naive. Some say it was a failed attempt at a tax shelter. So there were a lot of different ideas, but it really was not, in the beginning, it really was not intended to be an architectural practice per se. And we were friends. We were interested in making things. We were interested in working with artists. We were interested in engaging in our community in ways that made sense to us. So, the blue-collar glory is funny. The only thing really blue-collar about Dorado is the fact that there's a little blue in my collar. The City of Gold, everybody will ask inevitably what the name means, and there's 18 different creation myths around the name, and I'll get into a few maybe, but probably want to save those for the convention. City of Gold or boondoggle really is a reminder, a constant reminder that even though our ambitions are very serious and very high-minded, we're also, it's fraught with peril. I mean, we're trying to do some things that are very difficult to do, and when we talk a little bit about the idea of practice and the struggles of practicing, architects tend to be ambitious, tend to be idealistic, and the world is surprisingly not highly receptive to our ambitions and our idealism, and so we're constantly trying to remind ourselves that it's a slow grind to get where you want to go. So the whole notion of Dorado in the end may be the pursuit of a city of gold, but it also may be an enormous swindle that we've kind of dropped on ourselves.
Great. And I'm sure you do have a number of anecdotes to share during your presentation. Your program brief hints at some poetry. And I know that fine arts and artists seem to play a strong role in the evolution and the work of Dorado, Inc. And this is just a small question here, but can you briefly discuss the intersection of art and architecture and why that is important in the work that you guys do?
Sure. Well, it's always been there. So in the very, very, very beginning, Dorado was kind of equal parts architecture practice, not really even knowing then what that meant. Equal parts fabrication, and equal parts art gallery. And there's always, among the partners, there's always been a kind of a natural inclination to buddy up with artists and be interested in the work that they do. And so really the connection in the beginning, it was the neighborhood that we kind of grew up in as a culture, as a practice. There are still galleries, museums, working artist studios. Our wives, our friends are artists, and so it's been a natural kind of link with us from the beginning. The gallery was a way to get to really understand how artists think about presenting their work, and how you put a show together. As we moved beyond that, we started working with artists and bringing them into our architectural projects, and also working with them on public art projects. So what was a bit of a maybe more of a passive relationship with artists has emerged over 17 years into a full-blown, proactive, working relationship with artists. The reason we like working with artists is they make our projects much more interesting. They don't look at problems the way that we do. In fact, we know that an artist is going to be a good artist to work with when they tell us that they're not interested in problem solving. So we bring them into urban planning projects. We build them into facade detailing projects. We go into their world, they come into our world, and it's a really interesting, satisfying exchange of ideas and working methods, and ultimately we do think it's problem solving that they're working on. But if they don't like to think that way, that's okay.
They won't admit it.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds very exciting. I know that fabrication and that process of making is another very important factor for your work. And can you discuss why the process of making things is so important for architects today?
Sure. There's in the most obvious of ways, it's what we do. We make things, or we create documents that lead to making things. And, in 1996, it seemed really novel at the time. I mean, I'm happy to say that now this idea sounds very common, but, it seems slightly absurd that architects wouldn't know how to make things. And of course, buildings are complex, and we can't know everything, but for us, fabrication, and steel fabrication in particular, was one strategy for us to get to know how to make things with steel, and get to know it really, really well. And it continues to be an integral part of our practice. And it makes us better collaborators. It makes us more authentically appreciative of craftsmanship in other places, in other areas where we aren't, we don't do woodwork, we don't do glass, we don't do plastics, we just do linear steel. And it's, our shop setup is really, really, really basic, but strategically it was a way to get to know a material so that we could be smarter. And it's really set up a culture of respect for craftsmanship that it permeates. It's fundamental to the way that we work.
Sure, I suppose it's a lot easier to join the conversation when you can actually speak the language, so that makes perfect sense. Sort of jumping off track here, El Dorado just seems like a really fun place to work. Your website, it has the standard architecture fare, like completed projects and resumes and things like that. But you also have areas with titles like writings and videos and even capers and mammals. And can you briefly discuss the culture of El Dorado and why is that so important to the work that you do?
Sure. Well, it's ultimately rooted in the way that we started, again, which was not a business proposition. We didn't have a big project that we were pulling from another firm. I mean, if you think about all the ways that an architectural practice might start, ours was more it was rooted in friendship and enjoying being with each other and thinking similarly about how we felt the work ought to happen. And so it naturally unfolded. And we had dogs. We had, each of us has, our own kind of individual interest. I mean, Dan, for example, Dan's a big writer, and we dogs. Now we have kids, so that's part of the culture as well. It's always been a part of it, and really now as we are entering year 18, the cultivation of the culture is something that we are really, as a business, we're really mindful of, and the first 5 years, the first 10 years, maybe it was easy and natural, but as we grow and get more complex and people's lives take on different shades and different demands, we really have to think about it as a design problem. How do you keep the design, how do you keep the culture of a practice evolving and not stagnating? So it's something that we tend to very consciously, which is, it can be a challenge sometimes, but at the end of the day, if we're not having a good time, really, we might as well, we could sell shoes or, sell coal or something, probably make a lot more money but not have as much fun and not be as happy. So it's really, it's a core piece of our identity. And, we want people to know that.
That's great. It's great. Well, we're running a little short on time, but while I still have you, here in Colorado, we have a pretty strong group of emerging professionals, and many of us are starting our own practices and opening our own offices. Now, having been through the ringer, so to speak, and come out on top, are there a few words of wisdom that you can share with us to get us through, as you state on your website, those cold evenings fighting off pigeons in the alley?
Well, yeah. I mean, first of all, if you have the inclination to start your own practice, you have to do it. I mean, at some point you have to do it if it's there, and if you have it, you can't know everything you need to know to be successful. So there's no point in waiting until you feel like if you have the urge, I would say you have to just do it, and then seek the counsel and wisdom of smart people. And there are in the early days of El Dorado, I would say we didn't have a lot of counsel from architects because people didn't understand what we were trying to do. We didn't really understand what we were trying to do fully. But we did find in Kansas City an enormously generous entrepreneurial community that was willing to talk to us about the basics of business operation. And, we learned over time. We were patient. We're probably less patient now than we've ever been, but we were patient in the early days. And so seek counsel of people that are smarter than you, and be open to the idea that you don't know everything, and that you can't know everything, and that's okay. Just be honest and get to work.
Sounds great. Well, David, I really do appreciate your time this morning, and I really look forward to your session at this fall's conference.
Thanks a lot, Andy, or Adam. I'm sorry.
No problem. All right. Bye-bye.
Earlier for you. Thanks, Adam. See you later.
Bye.